Hello and welcome to Beyond Business, where we look at the latest trends in the global economy. Today we're looking at the global aviation market. It's not just airlines that are fighting for a piece of the action. Airports are also in a race to carve up the market for planes and passengers. The main airport operator here in Paris is in expansion mode, for example. It's already taken a stake in the company that runs Istanbul's main hub. And it's also eyeing targets closer to home.
Furniture design, luxury stores and a spacious layout meant to create a calm and relaxing atmosphere. Welcome to the S4, the new boarding area at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Aéroports de Paris, the company that manages Paris's main airport, invested 580 million euros in the terminal. Its goal, to build a boarding area passengers would love.
You're now seeing what ADP wants for its clients, a quality space where passengers begin their voyage on the ground. We want to improve the airport's competitiveness for the good of France and for the good of the Paris region. We want to make Paris's position stronger.
Stronger so it can have greater weight internationally. ADP is out to conquer foreign markets. This June, it bought a 38% stake in TAV, the main Turkish airport operator. We head to Istanbul to learn more.
It's an investment for our future in both the medium and long terms. You need to think ahead. We're looking forward to when our markets are fully mature and to having new growth and additional resources from these young markets that are still growing.
For the French operator, growth is to the east. With its new partnership, ADP is now helping run 12 new airports, including Macedonia, Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, and here in Turkey. Exporting management à la française.
We operate the airport as a whole, in all aspects. Our primary task is to manage the airplanes and welcome passengers. But we have many other tasks too. For example, we design and organise retail spaces, the shops. In fact, the operator manages all the activities that take place in and around the airport.
Including the handling of luggage. It all takes place inside the airport's high-security warehouse, and we were allowed behind the scenes. ADP's field of action is extending abroad, but the group's keeping a close eye on opportunities back home.
I've always said that Lyon's airport has a lot of similarities with the ones in Paris. So if Lyon was to go on the market, we could be interested.
Lyon is still a baby brother to both Paris airports, but promising prospects lie ahead.
We now have 8.5 million passengers. It's the third largest airport in France. It has had the largest growth of all regional airports in the last 5 years.
A growth rate that could get the Paris airports operator to remodel its domestic strategy.
Inevitably, if you directed the major French infrastructure in Paris, you would look at what would be additional possibilities for growth in France. And you would look particularly carefully at Lyon.
ADP has set in motion an aggressive expansion strategy, and Lyon could be the next step of the company's development. With many operators from emerging markets showing their teeth, it's the only way, they say, to stay ahead of competition.
All right, joining us now for more on the race between airports is Jose Villegas. He's the Secretary General of the International Transport Forum. That, in turn, is a think tank that deals with transport issues at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Welcome to the program and thanks for joining us. Now, let's start talking about airport competition because that's is what this report left finished on, really. Is it a good thing to have competition between airports?
In principle, yes. I mean, people can choose to go by land to one or another airport in many cases, but certainly they can choose to route via one or another airport when they go to another continent and they don't come from one of the major hubs. So this competition provides the incentive for higher efficiency, for better services at lower prices.
Do you think it means lower prices for airlines and for passengers in the end?
Certainly, if there was only one possibility of going, imagine, from Lisbon to Singapore, I would be stuck with one option only. I can choose to go via Paris, via London, via Amsterdam, via Frankfurt, via Rome. So I can choose depending on the timetable, on the quality of service, and on the price. So competition in principle is healthy. That's in principle what we believe, at least in the Western world, that competition is healthy. And here you need, of course, there's an element of public service and public obligations that are there. And for that, you need a regulator. But once this is covered, it is good to have competition among competent players.
Who are the competitors? We just saw the expansion plans of Aéroport de Paris. Who are its competitors?
You have a number of competitors, some which are on a similar position, I would say, who have their own, who are publicly owned companies and operate their own domestic bases. You have the case of Frankfurt, the case of Amsterdam. These are the two most visible ones here in Europe. But you also have you have also Changi, Singapore airport, which is increasingly active as well. You have also from the United Arab Emirates, but you have private companies who are coming into the game as well, because they've understood that this is basically about the flow of people, the flow of baggage, the flow of information, the flow of vehicles. And so companies which are active in managing other types of transport infrastructure who find that they can also be competent in this. And this is a growing market. Air transport is the mode of transport that is growing more quickly all over the world. Now, it's a global business.
You mentioned a number of companies and airport operators there. Do they have the same modus operandi as Aéroport de Paris? Are they looking to expand in a similar fashion?
Oh, yes. I mean, Amsterdam and Frankfurt even started earlier, and they've been very active. So this is it's a game that has been going on for more than a decade, clearly. It's something that ADP is not alone, clearly not alone.
Now,
and some have been more successful in some parts of the world, some have been more successful in other parts of the world. That's the name of the game.
Airport ownership, though, it's seen as quite a sensitive issue.
But ownership is one thing, operation is another. The British have decided to privatize the airport, so the assets go along. The more traditional model is you concede the operation, the right to operate, to manage the operation, but the assets stay in the public hand. It's very different kinds of issues when you're speaking about sovereignty, for instance. In the first case, you could argue that there are some sovereignty issues because the public side no longer controls what will be done with that. So at the limit, they could do a resort there. In the case in which you just concede the operation, what you have is it's something which has an oversight from the public side, and it is supposed to be that business only better than it was done before.
But why do you think there is so much prestige in this game?
Because it's the gateway to the country. I mean, why should it be so? It's more emotional than rational. I mean, why some countries are saying our local public transport has to be operated by the national companies because this is a flagship. In France, you still have RATP doing this in Paris, but the other cities have gone to private companies, most of them French, but not necessarily. For some decades, this was a very sensitive issue. And you have the same thing about ports, maritime ports. Some countries will open them to competition between private port operators, some others will not. So it's a question of really, it's on the emotional side of our minds, not so much on the rational side.
Do you think authorities have gone about this the right way, so to speak, when they try to manage all of this? I mean, is there enough competition? If we look at Europe, for instance, have European authorities managed to establish a situation where there is enough competition?
It depends. You see, the competition is organized by the national authorities. The tenders, they're organized by the national authorities, and it depends how they structure the tenders. In my own country, in Portugal, the airport operating company is now open for a tender for its concession. And there have been, I think, 10 competitors from all over the world. So there you clearly have enough competition. In some other cases, you had an interesting case, which was in the case of the London area, in which after privatization, the competition authority thought that because one only company was managing all 5 of London airports, they said there is not enough competition, you have to divide. So they did not want to nationalize it again. They said you have to divide this because by being a monopolist, you are extracting rent from the scarcity of supply. And so they said, you are not doing enough investment. The best way to solve the problem is to go and divide so that you can have one private operator competing against another private operator in the same region. But you always have some competition between airports in neighboring regions. I mean, in the end, there is some competition, for instance, between Paris and Amsterdam. Both are bigger than Brussels. People from Brussels will not have direct flights to some places where they can reach directly from Amsterdam or Paris. They can choose. So some areas in the middle will always have the possibility of opting for one airport or the other. But this is more visible when you have to route from a long place. You have to go through one of the major hubs. And if I have to go, imagine, from Lisbon to Singapore, I can choose to go via London, Amsterdam, Paris, Frankfurt, Rome. How do I choose? Based on quality of service, how do I favor the timetables, and what are the prices? So you have the three ingredients: time, comfort, and price, that will structure the choice of the consumers. And in the end, it's good to have competition among the airports for this, but also between or among candidate players when this is going for privatization, and even among airports in the same region which can be reached by land. So it's a business which requires more than any other thing good quality, economic efficiency. And this is what the authorities have been trying to get. And you put a little salt of emotional national pride, and you have it.
A lot of national pride.
Sometimes, yes.
All right. Jose Viegas, thanks very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. And with that, we're going to wrap up Beyond Business. Thanks for watching France 24, and do stay with us. We have more news coming your way soon.